For this painting, we'll be using titanium white, phthalo blue, deep yellow, and bright red paint. Take a moment and put some onto a paper plate or a palette that you can use so that it's ready to go when we start painting. We'll also be using a Filbert brush size number 6 and a round brush size number 0. If you're painting on a larger canvas bigger than an 11 by 14, you'll also need a number 10 Filbert brush for your background. In this video, we're going to be painting cherry blossoms. We're going to use a Filbert brush. A Filbert brush is fat on one side and thin on the other side. You can turn it sideways and get 2 brush strokes. You can get a fat brush stroke or turn it up and get a thin brush stroke. The top of the brush is rounded and it's a fantastic brush for mixing colors. You can mix colors on your palette without using a palette knife. You can use your Filbert brush, and you can mix colors on your canvas while you're painting. The brushes we're using are natural bristle brushes. The natural bristle requires a little extra care than the synthetic brushes, but you get a much nicer brush stroke. To take care of your brush, the first thing is that anytime you make a brush stroke, you want to have the brush touching the canvas and you pull. There's never a point where you want to push this brush. You can pull it in any direction, and anytime you make a brush stroke, you want your brush to be at a 45-degree angle to the canvas. So 90 degrees is straight up and down, 45 degrees is about halfway down, and you can make that 45-degree angle brush stroke in any direction you want as long as you're not pushing the brush. Also, when you load your brush with paint, you only want the paint to go halfway up the bristles. If it goes past halfway up the bristles and it starts to get near to the ferrule, that's the metal part that holds the bristles together, you want to stop what you're doing and wash off your brush. The paint getting up into the ferrule will ruin your brushes, but it also makes it more difficult for you to get a clean brush stroke because the paint can fall off of that area and land on your painting where you don't want it to go. When you wash your brushes, I love Solo cups for washing brushes. They have ridges on the side. The ridges help to get the paint off really well. You put the brush inside of your water in your cup and you just paint up the side, flip it over and paint up the side some more. When you see that most of the paint has come off of the brush, that's good enough, and you can stop washing it and you can get a paper towel or a napkin and clean off the excess water. You always want to take off the excess water because we don't want to add any water into our paints. These paints are water thinned, they're acrylic paints, but if you thin them out with water and you put it on your canvas, you won't get the same kind of result as if you just put the straight paint on. These paints are already thin enough, they don't need any extra water added. We're going to use our largest brush and we're going to make fill up our brush with paint. So starting out, we're going to start with loading with white paint, and you're going to take your brush, hold it at a 45-degree angle. Let me see if I can get some light. Hold it at a 45-degree angle to your plate. Put it right in front of the white, and you're going to gently slide the brush in so that the paint goes about a quarter of the way up the brush. Then you're going to pull that brush stroke out about an inch or so. Then flip over your brush, put it right to the edge of the puddle again, slide it in a quarter of the way into the paint, bring it down about an inch or so, flip it over, and we're going to do this over and over until the brush is full. It'll take about 20 times to load up the brush properly. So you go right to the edge of that puddle of paint, put the bristles in about a quarter of the way up the bristles, press down, pull out, flip it over, go in, press down, pull out. And you're going to keep doing this, flipping and dipping and pulling it out until the paint goes halfway up the bristles. When the paint's halfway up the bristles, it'll look like this. It's big and fat in the middle, but it comes to a chiseled tip. That's perfect. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to use blues for our background in this painting. So now that it's loaded up with white, I'm going to go over to the blue, and this blue it's a phthalo blue, and it's very, very dark. It will look almost black if you put it on straight. So we are going to just barely touch the blue with the tip of the brush and get a little spot on there. And then we're going to take it over to the white and we're going to blend it in. This brush, like I said, is fantastic for mixing your colors. What you see is what you have. So if what you see down here is streaky and has some white still in it, then that's what's on your brush. If what you see is smooth and all blue, then that's what's on your brush. And I love streaky colors. I try not to blend my colors too much. I like the streaky look. But when you have a nice color that you like, we're ready to start our first brush strokes on this painting. We're just going to go to the background and make 2 brush strokes, always holding that brush at 45 degrees. Get 2 brush strokes on there, and then come out and let's fill it up again. Fill it up again. Same thing. Go right to the edge of the puddle, put the brush in, pull it out. Put the brush in, pull it out. And this time it'll fill up a little faster, and you'll get a new color. And let's put that new color down. There we go. We're going to keep going, fill up our whole canvas with all kinds of blues. I'm going to use darker blues and lighter blues. I might even add in some yellow or some red. But every time you come back, I want you to make a brand new color and use that new color to put on your canvas. I like to have colors go right next to each other that are not the same, and to try to not blend them in so I can get some nice impressionist kind of style. So when I do that, I just make a brush stroke and then I leave it alone. There's some darker areas down here. They're right next to some lighter areas. I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to blend them in. I'm going to let the light area stay next to the dark area. As I'm painting, I like for my corners especially to be darker than my middle. So I'll make a nice dark color to put into the corners, starting down here. And this gives it a vignetting effect. The vignetting is kind of a romantic feel, but it makes it so that you focus on the center of the painting. It's a more peaceful kind of effect that draws your attention to the center of the painting. I'd like to add some yellow into my background. This painting has a lot of red and pink in it in the foreground. So I'd like to add some yellows to my background to just kind of balance out a little bit with what's going on in the foreground. To add some yellow, I'm just going to go to my yellow paint, add some to my brush, and take it to somewhere on the canvas and just mix it right in. The paint's still wet, so it'll blend with whatever is already there, and it'll give me some nice yellow areas. So now I have some variety in my background. You definitely want there to be a lot of variety in your background. If you just have one solid color of the same blue everywhere, it looks kind of like, why did you paint those flowers on a blue wall? You don't get the same kind of depth from it if it's all one color. So giving it a variety of colors, and especially a variety of values. Your value is how light or how dark the color is, will give you more depth in your painting. So you want to have some areas that are darker and some areas that are lighter, and some areas that have maybe some yellow would be nice, or some red would be nice too. I'm going to go with yellow on mine. But try stuff out and see what you like. I like my brush strokes to go every which direction. So I tend to make little X's while I paint. If you like that look, it's really easy to do it with X's. You just keep making X's all over the place like this. If you like all of your brush strokes to go the same direction, that's also looks really great when you're done. That's really up to each individual person's style, how they like it. I like the X's, so I'm going to do X's. And again, I'm doing these corners a little bit darker than the rest of my painting to give that extra depth so that you really focus to the center, and it makes a much more relaxing kind of feel for the painting. It's less dynamic and more relaxing than if I were to do the corners in the same colors. So I want you to fill up your whole canvas, and then we're going to let it dry. It's going to take a little while to dry. Mine will be probably about 15 to 20 minutes to dry. If you're working with a smaller canvas, sometimes it's a little bit faster. I'm working on a 16 by 20 canvas, but we are going to let it dry now. Now that our canvas is dry, we can move on to doing the foreground. So we're going to start by loading our brush up with red paint. And we're using that number 6 Filbert brush. Once your paint is loaded up, we're going to draw in our branch, which is going to start down here in the lower right corner, and it's going to come up to the upper left corner. I like to stay away from the exact corner, maybe go in a little bit. I'll start right around here. And I'm gonna make it so that it's a little bit choppy. It doesn't have to be all filled in, but I don't want it to be smooth. And again, I'm staying away from that corner as well. Now I can fill it in a little bit, always holding the brush at 45 degrees. And a thing about branches is that they start out fatter down here and they get thinner as they get away from the base. So I don't want it to be too fat up here, and I would like it to be fatter down there. So I'm going to thicken this up a little bit down at the base. There we go. All right, and we're going to add some branches onto that first branch. And generally, they're going to be alternating from the right side and then the left side. And we don't want to put them directly across from each other. So I'll do one starting off from the right side. So I just pick a place and I'm going to make it choppy and go right off the canvas, all the way off the canvas. And then start one on the left side. Same thing, it's going to be choppy and it's going to come all the way off the canvas. And I can fill that in as I need to. And I want it to be thicker at the base and thinner at the tip. So we did the right, we did the left. We'll go back to the right again. And then we'll go back to the left again. Maybe one more from the right for mine. If you don't feel like yours needs it, don't do it. Okay. Now it looks kind of like a road map, but I'm going to add in some branches on my branches. So these are going to do the same thing. They're going to alternate between left and right, and they're not going to go across from each other. I'm going to go a little ways before I do the next one. So maybe I'll do one off of here. And really that one only needs one, so I don't need to alternate. On this branch, I'll do one off of this side. And then one off of this side. On this branch, one on the right. And then one on the left. Let's do one here. I feel like I have enough branches, so I'm going to stop there. When you feel like you have enough branches, go ahead and stop. And then you can fuss with all the little parts filling in if you want to fill them in. But try not to make them too smooth. We want them to be a little bit bumpy and rough and look like bark on a tree when we're done. While that red is still wet, I want you to get in there with the next color, which is yellow. And what I do is I take my brush and I wipe off whatever paint's on it. I don't need all that extra paint, but I'm gonna go up and load with the yellow, and it's gonna make an orange color, and that's okay. I just need some yellow on my brush. This is going to make the highlights on our branches. That's going to give our branches a full rounded kind of look and give them all of the depth that we need. So I'm gonna use yellow for making those highlights. And I'm gonna decide what direction my light is coming from. In this particular instance, my light's just gonna come from the top up here. So I'm just going to go around, and on the top of everything, I'm gonna put some yellow. It'll blend right in to what I have already on my canvas. And this will be the highlights for my branch. When you've got yellow in a lot of areas there on the top of your branches, then we're going to switch, get the paint off the brush again, just wipe it off, and we're going to switch to blue. So the blue is much, much too dark to use on its own. We're going to mix some red into some blue. And you can also use, you know, what's on your brush. But I'm going to start by loading it up with red. And then going to blue and loading up a little bit of blue. It'll make a dark purple color. That's a little too dark, so I'm going to go back to red. Now that's the color I'm looking for. You can keep going back and forth between adding more blue and adding more red, and you can do that all day long if you want. But this is the color I'm looking for right there. It's dark purple. When you've got your dark purple, we're going to put the dark purple in the opposite of where we put the yellow. So it'll go on the bottoms of your branches. And it still should be blending in with what you've already got, hopefully. Hopefully it didn't get too dry. If it did get too dry and it's not blending in, that's okay. You can just add a little bit more red to what you're working with and make a lighter color of purple. But I want to go to all the bottoms of my branches, assuming the light's coming from the top up here. And you don't have to put it everywhere. You can skip a few places. It'll look nice. Maybe it's not so shadowy in that area. Oh, I missed a whole branch over here. All right. And that's it for our branches. So those, adding the highlight and then adding the shadow to the red color gives it that rounded effect so that it looks like this is something that's being hit by light. Missed a spot. And we're ready to go to our cherry blossoms. I want you to clean off your number 6 Filbert brush really well because we're going to change up our color scheme and start with our cherry blossoms. We're going to start making our cherry blossoms. We're going to start with the buds. So it'll be 2 brush strokes of pink. And you can make any color pink that you like. Start with loading your brush up with white. You've got a nice clean brush, number 6 Filbert brush. And we're going to load it up with white. And then when it's loaded up with white, go over to the red and start adding red to it. When it's the color you want, then it's all ready to go. So you're going to mix it right on the brush. What you see is what you get. I like to do this without mixing the color too well. If the color is mixed too well, it's just going to be solid pink, and I really like it to be kind of streaky, have a little bit of white in it, not blend it up completely. So we'll go ahead and put on some of these little buds. These are the ones with 1 petal. It's 2 brush strokes. The brush stroke starts near the tree, not on it, but near it. And you come up and then you go down and make a second one right next to it so that it makes a teardrop shape. And you'll see how I have a darker area, a lighter area, some other pink in there. Gives it extra depth without really having to work for it. I did that just by not blending my colors very well. Go ahead and add more paint to your brush. We're going to do a whole bunch of these. You'll get a lot of time to practice. I want you to do between 10 and 15 of these little buds. They're going to be next to the branches, not touching the branches. And they're just a little teardrop shape. Right next to your branches, teardrop shape. Do them in all different colors. Get some lighter ones, some darker ones. Get as many different colors as you can. How many do I have? 6. Also make them different directions. Have some going up, some going down, some going sideways. How many do I have? I have 12. So I'm going to stop at 12, but keep going on yours. Do as many as you feel like you need. I would say do at least 10, and I wouldn't do more than 15 or 18. You should be somewhere in between 10 and 15 is probably fine. When you have enough of those, we're going to move into doing the ones with 3 petals. So these are blossoms that we're looking at from the side. And when you do them, we're going to do, they can go next to the branch, just like the ones with 1 petal, where you just make 3 petals, 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Or they can go on top of the branch. If you have something that you really don't like maybe you've got a spot here. I don't like this spot very much, so I'll put one right on top of there. Again, make some of them dark, make some of them light, make them all different colors. And with this one, let's do, maybe about 10 of these as well. Maybe 8 to 10. And if you don't blend your colors really well, you can get some cool streaky effects. All right, when you feel like you have enough of those ones, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I have 10. Around 10 or so will be fine. But when you feel like you have enough of those, we're going to go in and do the ones with 5 petals. So this is going to be the exact same thing as the ones with 3 petals, but we'll add 2 more petals to it. As always, use as many different colors as you possibly can. I want to see some dark ones and some light ones, all the way from white to red, as many different colors as you can get. Now these flowers, just put these right on top of your branches. 5 petals right on top of the branches. The petals, it's okay if some of the petals are bigger or some of them are smaller. Just makes it look like you're looking at it from a different angle. So it's definitely okay if you have a petal that's smaller or bigger than the other petals next to it. It's also okay if they overlap a little bit. If you have a flower that overlaps another flower, that is totally okay. Especially pay attention to places on your branch that you might not like. If there's something that when we were doing the branch, like I don't like this area right here at all, so I'm gonna cover that up with a flower right now. There, now it's all gone. Nobody will ever see that part of the branch. So 5 petals, we want to do a bunch of them. They can overlap your other flowers a little bit. We want to get lots of pink blossoms on there. Goodness, how many did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. I did 8. I'm going to do 10. There we go. Now I have 10. So do a bunch of them. When you feel like you have enough, you probably have enough. If you feel like you need more, if there's something you really want to cover up, go ahead and cover it up with one of those flowers. After you've got all of your flowers put together, we are going to add some variety into our petals. Right now, you've got flowers where all of the petals are pretty much the same color. And that's the case on basically all of my flowers, probably yours too. But I don't want there to be a flower where all the petals are the same colors. In fact, I want every flower to have different colors of petals. I want some of the petals to be hit by the light differently. I want some of them to be angled differently. I want there to look like these are flowers in nature and not flowers that I just made up and started painting on there. So I'm going to first take some white paint and load my brush up with just white paint. You don't have to clean your brush first. It's okay if you do, but you don't have to. You can just load up with white. When you've got some white on there, I want you to go to every single flower and make sure that one of its petals is white. We're just going to put white right on top of what's there. It'll blend in, and that's okay. That'll just give us a different color of pink, which is perfectly acceptable. So do this on your flowers that have 3 petals. Do this on your flowers that have 5 petals. You can add a stripe down your buds. If you have buds on there that are all a solid color, you can add a stripe down the side of one of the buds. Let me find one, see if I can show you. Here's one right here. I can add white down the side of this bud. Gives it a lot more interest. Changes the way that I look at that bud completely. But I want to see one white petal on every flower. When every flower has one white petal, go ahead and wipe your brush off, or you can clean it. And we're going to switch to red. And we are going to do the exact same thing with red. I'm going to take this red and I'm going to give every flower one red petal. So it'll be a different petal than the one I made white. Doesn't matter which petal, just one red petal. It'll blend in with what's already there. So it's not going to be bright solid red, but that's okay. We just want to have some variety. Give each one red petal. And you can start to see, I have one of the buds right here, and it's solid white. I don't like that solid white, so I'm going to take my red and just run a line up one side of that. Changes the whole thing. So you can start to see that when you add in all of these reds and pinks, that everything starts to look a little more realistic. Oh, here's another bud that needs some darks on the side. There we go. All right. You can start to get more realistic modeling happening. So after everybody's got one red petal and one white petal, we're going to make a bunch of them, not all of them, but a bunch of them. We're going to give them a blue petal. So what this does, it takes the background color and it integrates it into the foreground. Right now our foreground is very isolated from our background. It doesn't match what's happening in the background at all, which is a completely different color scheme than what's happening in the foreground. And I really want to integrate that and bring the background to the front and bring the foreground to the back. So I'm going to take and make a color just like my sky color. You may need to wash a brush to do this, but you may need to wash your brush to do this. But we're going to make a color that's the same as your sky color. You're just going to take fill it up with white to begin with, and then add a little bit of blue until it's the same color as your sky. Any part of your sky, it doesn't matter which part of your sky either. So as long as it's white and blue, you should be good to go. And we're going to take that light blue color, and I'm going to pick one petal on all of the flowers that look like they need one, but there's an example. There's an example. I don't want to do it on my white petal or on my pink petal, my red petal. But I'm just going to go around and put this light blue in, I would say put it in about 15 places. So pick a petal, paint that petal light blue. It doesn't have to be solid light blue. It can just be part of it light blue. But I want to see some light blue in the foreground. And you should see right away that that brings the background to the front. It kind of brings everything together. How many places do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have 15 places where I put blue. So put in some blue. Make sure it's spread out. You don't want it all concentrated in one area. Make sure it goes over your whole painting, and spread out some blue onto all of your flowers. Now we're going to use our small round brush. You should have a 0 round brush. A round brush loads paint a lot differently than a filbert brush. On a round brush, you can just dip it in. You don't have to do anything fancy. So we're going to make up a dark purple, which is just take some red, swirl it around in the red, and then take some blue and swirl that blue around with the red. You'll get a bunch of dark purple. This dark purple color we're going to use to make the dots and the stems. So starting with the stems, we want to make a small line, as small as you can do with your little round brush. So you're just going to use just the tip of the brush for painting this. And you're going to take everywhere that you put a bud, you're going to connect it to the branch by just making a small line. If you have these other ones, like this one here is not connected to the branch either, you can connect those to the branch as well. But especially all the buds need to be connected to the branch. sometimes they're sneaky and you don't notice until later that you missed one. So be sure, just go up the whole branch, look everywhere for anywhere that needs a little stem, and give everybody a stem. I think I got everybody. Nope. Missed one. Okay. And when everybody has a stem and they're all connected to your branch, we're going to do dots. So the dots are pretty simple. We're just going to use the tip of the brush and dot it right on there. I want you to start by doing all of the flowers that have 5 petals on the blossom. So those ones, we're just going to put some dots in the middle. There's a 5. And then we're going to add, oh my, this one has 5. Then we're going to add some dots in between the petals of the ones with 3 petals. So those ones, we're looking at the blossom from the side. So we're just going to put some dots in between. Just dot them right on there. Your painting is now ready to be signed. Thank you for painting with me.